I joined this with the thought that if I could change one thing for one person, that it would be worth it. But I have a loftier goal now. I want to change it for everyone. I don't want anyone in our country or any other country to feel what we feel every day.
And I think that people understanding that we don't want to be in opposition as being in poverty, people understanding that being, using a service just to help is no different than anybody using their credit card to get by, on a daily basis. If you don't have enough money just to, maybe put gas in your car and stuff like that, a lot of people have those options. When you're in poverty, credit scores are not good. These things are not good. And it could be whatever anybody else wants to say in, society and say, well, you should have did better. Yes, we all should have. You know what I'm saying? And the key is that I'm here now. This is the point that I'm at. I think having a committee that is speaking to people that make decisions, people that are sitting in the seat, gets rid of that middleman, if I can say it that way. You know what I'm saying? Is that now you're hearing it directly. You're not hearing it from a legislator that said that they heard it from us. We're sitting down with the heads of the departments, with the heads of nonprofit organizations, community organizations, with some business leaders, and they're hearing firsthand things that affect us.
Hi, my name is Juanita Maestas, and I am a co-lead for Governor Inslee's Poverty Reduction Work Group Steering Committee. In this committee, we are having our own training session to educate people what it's like to be in poverty.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Bearskin. I'm an enrolled member of the Aleut Cowlingan Tribe of Unalaska, and I reside here in Snohomish Territory, which is Snohomish County area. I am the youngest daughter of the Sea Monster Man, and I'm here to tell you my experience of what it is like to have lived my life in poverty in Washington State. Poverty for me was something that I experienced at a very young age, as young as in the womb of my mother. She was in public housing, and I remember living in Northgate and West Seattle areas much before the gentrification happened, and it was very tough. It was very tough for Alaskan natives like my mother and her children to be able to survive in those kinds of areas. We were dealing with a lot of violence and drugs, and much of the police didn't like to come out to our area when we needed them. I remember how it impacted my education because we had to move frequently. But I can remember at a young age, as young as 9, that I knew that our government was failing me. And that says a lot about our government in Washington State, if a 9-year-old in poverty could figure that out at such a young age.
I think as a black man, what was important to me too was getting involved in this to try to change my children's future. I had to really start thinking about, I was creating a narrative for my children and saying that we're poor and saying that we live in poverty. And I started to realize that, it was translating to them every time that I said, we don't have the money for that. Oh, we don't have, we can't afford that. And I realized being a part of this group that narrative had to change. So what basically I started doing was saying things like, well, I have to work harder for daddy to get that, or teaching, using it as a teachable moment to say, well, look, the more that you keep your lights on, the more that daddy has to pay the light bill and then can't afford anything else.
The neighborhood that the house is in is like one of the worst neighborhoods to have a house in. Not only did she not get a lot for her apartment complexes, but she paid for this amount for this tiny house. But when I talk to some of my friends, I see, their houses and stuff. They got some nice houses and some a nice area, a nice neighborhood, and they paid practically the same amount for a house, and it's like 2 times the size of my grandma's house. And so it's like one of the differences from that racial wealth inequality thing is where, you know, the people who are selling the houses are sending black people to, you know, areas where houses are not normally going to get sold, and they're giving them this opportunity. And not only are they only showing them this house, but they're not showing them any other houses. So it's like the way that racial equality and the wealth gap is it's set up to, you know, harm people in that way.
Being in poverty for me was one of the hardest things you could ever go through, and I would never wish that on anybody. Going through the system and being told you can't get this, you can't get that. People saying, well, try this resource when they know it doesn't work. It's really difficult. You worry about being homeless, you worry about trying to get the right job, the right amount of money to take care of your family. All kinds of things go through your mind when you're in poverty. And there's not a lot of people that understand this.
I currently live in a home that is very unhealthy. It we don't have any laws or policies in Washington state that hold landlords accountable for that. And in turn, my health is failing, my children's health is failing, and because I am poor, I don't have enough to move, because when I moved in the place I live now, it was only $750. It's now almost double that to get into a place. And so here I still sit, the same situation, and I hope that we can get something changed.
And how hard it is to go into some of these offices when you're disabled and they won't help you, or they won't support you, or they will even flat out tell you you're too disabled to do anything. Why aren't you dropping everything and just looking for housing, because we can find you housing if you weren't a full-time student. And hearing those things when you have goals and desires and dreams for yourself, to make something of yourself for the first time in, you know, I'm almost 50 this year, after all the domestic violence and the sexual trauma that I've been through, to be able to arise with that. And you know, it's been a tough journey for me.
Do understand to some degree what it's like to be very poor, to be homeless, to be without a lacking of resources, to be a displaced worker who's injured, who is doing the American kept dream of trying to raise a family, working, and be a law-abiding citizen and raising law-abiding citizen children. And there are all kinds of barriers that have been created to really disencourage people to be able to get outside of the system.
It's really hard to have all these wonderful kids that you want the world for, but there's not much out there to let you get to that place where you know that your kids are going to be okay, where they're going to live better than you did. And my main goal is, I know my kids have lived in poverty and I can't do anything about that. I just made the best of it. You know, I've always made the best of it for them. Tried to make it seem like it was just normal and this is all fine. But I want my kids to have children that have never lived in poverty. I want my kids to have to sit and work really hard to explain to their kids what poverty is like. With the way the world is right now, with the way our country is right now, I don't see how that's possible until we make these changes that we're working so hard to make.
As a mom of 9 children, that I also have a duty to do, to make sure that I change policies that don't make any sense, or that at least I have their voices on the table for the future to be better for them. So it's a responsibility. It's a big load, but at the same time, if one of us doesn't stand up, then who will? And that's where I see myself, a beacon, a voice, and also someone that can bring also something to the community that it wasn't there before. I want to be able to inspire. I hope I can inspire one day many other moms, and for them not to feel that because sometimes they don't know the language, that they're not going to be heard or that nobody cares. No, there's people like me, and there's groups, organizations like Poverty Action Team that do care and do listen to your needs. And not only that, but they're willing to actually move forward with the changes that we are looking into the community.
So I'm hoping for our vision for the change in this state is that we realize that poor people are people first. They're just people who are poor, recognizing that, you know, we need to be able to uplift all people in our community and not be pushing them out of their homes or shaming them because they're poor or they're on WIC or anything like that, because we all deserve to have food in our bellies. We all deserve to have a roof over our head. We all deserve health care and a decent education. We all deserve all of that.
I want my grandkids to not know what it's like to have to scrape together your last little bit of change to get a gallon of milk because you're out, or rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, skimp on the power bill so that your child can go on a field trip, or skimp on all the bills just to pay the rent so that you at least have a roof over your head, because heck, you can live without power, but you got to have somewhere to stay. And I just don't ever want that for my grandchildren. I don't want them to know what that's like. I want them to understand that it happens, because I always want them to be compassionate, but I don't want them to have to live that way. And I would love for my husband to not have to put glue or tape on his work boots so that he can go back to work.
It's just that passion for people, that love for people, and even because of my own personal challenges and having to fight and scratch through life, I want my children and even my grandchildren, not that they won't have to fight, because they will, there will always be something, but that maybe I can smooth the way in some small way for them, and as I learn and as I try to make changes for them, that when they grow up and are born, that they can take that torch and there will always be some little light there for other people, and it'll just be a continuous, perpetual theme, kind of like a domino effect. So that's what kind of led me to this work.
It's people don't understand we don't get a day off from being poor. We don't get a vacation for being poor. Our struggles are constantly set with surviving. And I don't remember ever, especially when I got out of being homelessness and sitting there and realizing that I never got out of survival mode because I don't want to go back. So you realize you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, I can't make these mistakes because that's going to put me right back on the street. That's going to put my family back on the street. So you wind up making decisions that are based off of condition of never ever going back to what it was. And a lot of times that's $1 away. And being a part of this committee, being a part of hearing everybody else's story in the committee, not only does it make you realize that you're not alone, but it makes you realize that there's so much work that we have to do to make sure people are out of survival mode.
I would say for our government, they need to go back to the beginning. Who was the first people displaced on these lands? Who was the first people denied housing? Who were the first people denied medical care and education? Who were the people that they said a good Indian is a dead Indian? Our government. And that's changing now because we're still here. And if those promises could have been kept to us, that meant all the promises made to everyone thereafter would have also been kept. So in order for us to fix these problems that are as I would say, the branches and the leaves affect of the racism and discriminatory laws that were created. We need to go to the root. You need to dig out the roots, and you need to go back to where you started back in 1492 when you displaced the first people of these lands. And you need to go back and fix those promises, and then everybody thereafter, their promises will follow. There's no reason in the country of the richest country in the world to have people that go hungry, who can't have an education or even a safe place to sleep at night. There's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. There's only action. And so this committee had put forth the action for us to make the changes so that no other children will be like me growing up, trying to look for food or trying to just survive in the education system because I didn't matter. So I want to thank you all for your time, and to realize that you need to put people first. Put your policies for your people, because any person in Washington could end in the same spot I did.
If there's not any changes made, what's going to happen to our kids, our grandkids? We're trying to break the way for the kids so that way they can have a better future. Right now, we do have some things that's improving as far as education, but the steering committee, I think, is one of the most powerful groups you will ever meet. And these people are here to tell you that we want to make Washington a better place for people that are in poverty. We want livable wages, no more homelessness. We want to be able to take care of our families and live a life that everybody dreams of, the house and the white picket fence. So I'm here to just let you know that I am one of those steering committee members that is asking you to please listen to this, listen to our stories and how we live day by day, and you help us make a change. Thank you.